You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show.
The 70% of people out there listening to the show today are going to need some level of care. It doesn't necessarily mean that 70% are going to end up in a nursing home, but 70% of people will need some assistance out there. The biggest fear is running out of money for the retiree, but what we see is not enough people spend enough of their money.
Cris prides himself in what matters to you. This is the Rite Retirement Show.
Hi there. So happy to have you with us. I'm Luann Fulmer. Welcome to the Rite Retirement Show. With me today, as always, is certified financial planner and financial advisor Cris Wallace. He's president of WG Financial Group. Then also joining us, Graham Bauer. He's also from the firm, and he is also a certified financial planner, financial advisor, and enrolled agent. And they're both here again today because they are going to share with us some smart, practical, empowering advice to help you plan for and truly enjoy your retirement. I know you love this show. I do as well. And if you have questions, they have answers for you. They can help you out on your retirement journey. All you have to do is reach out, okay? You can call Cris. Call or text the word VISIT 256-937-2010, okay? 256-937-2010. Schedule that discovery session you'll hear us talk about today. And remember, throughout the week, you can always connect to us on Facebook. Just look for WG Financial Group, okay? Cris will post any visuals from our show, or if there are any retirement headlines you need to know about from when we do this show to the weekend, you can certainly catch that. Our motto is plan, retire, and play. And remember, you can hear us anytime, anywhere. This show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or even online, WGFinancialGroup.com, the Rite Retirement Show. Hello, Cris.
Hey, Luann. How are you?
Good to be here with you. And hello to you, Graham.
Hey, good afternoon, Luann.
Great to be here, guys. Always fun. And gosh, happy Easter to you.
Yeah, happy Easter to you as well.
Yeah, Easter weekend. Love it.
You said it's always fun. Are you really being honest? Or are you just
kidding
saying
me?
that?
Before we even got started, were we not cracking up? So yeah.
We always do. It would be funny to just play some of the clips of things we talk about pre-show.
Yeah.
It would be, I think people would actually get a really big kick out of that.
So it all started with Graham asking me, hey, Luann, are you there? And I go, because I was swallowing my shake. And then we had to determine if it was a protein shake or a regular shake. And then we went into our favorite shakes.
And then we had to wipe up the spilled shake
because
I think you spilled some of it.
So let's go ahead and start with a federal minute. I'm excited. Graham, you have something for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly talk about one question that we get a lot and haven't been getting, I would say, an increasing amount of recently. We're going to hit on a lot of federal related stuff this show. A lot of what we'll be talking about has to do with pensions, and the federal employees are one of the largest group with pensions. So if you're federal, you'll get probably more than a federal minute today. But just starting out, what I've been hearing a lot of recently is people asking, should I retire as soon as I'm eligible? Let's say that's 57, 58, 60, or do I need to wait until 62 to retire? And when people ask this question, I think for the federal employee, this is very similar to the do I need to wait until I collect my Social Security to retire question that you might get from someone who's not federal. And the unfortunate answer to that question is it depends. I can't really tell you if you just walk up to me on the street and say, hey, I have 25 years of federal service. I'm 52 years old, be fully eligible at 57. Should I go then or wait till 62? I have no idea at that point. But what I will say is that when we look at the numbers, if you're going to work past 57, being that you're already fully eligible, it does make more sense to work until 62 or just go out when you're eligible if you can afford it. But the big kicker there is just, what have you saved in other accounts, TSP, other investment accounts? What does that look like? What does your lifestyle look like? What does your debt situation look like? There's a lot more factors, but federal employees do have the unique ability to go out, much earlier than the average person, still getting a guaranteed income source. So I think if you're someone who, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I think if you're someone who is going to be eligible to retire before you're 62, you should look at what the difference is and just explore if that is an option for you. I think it can be easy for people to just think, no, I got to go to 62 so I get that, 10%, the 1.1 factor, the boost in my years of service. But that's not always the case for everybody. And the one thing that you can't really put a price on is time. And so if you can buy back some of your time a little earlier in life and you can afford it, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. So if that is you, I just think it's a good idea to take a look at that and say, hey, I know I can retire at 62, or maybe you don't know, but if you do know, can I get out any earlier if I'm eligible? Just so it's sadly not an easy question to answer, but it is a question that, we help people answer all the time.
Yeah. And the one thing I do want to mention here is that if you do retire prior to the age of 62, one of the things you want to make sure that you're aware of is there is no COLA on the Social Security supplement that you get, or the pension itself. Nothing starts receiving a COLA or cost of living adjustment until age 62. So that's really important to think about, because we've run into people before who've come in the office and they've retired, they're retired federal, and they said, man, I wish I would have known I don't get a COLA, until 62. And I was like, yeah, that's the case. And you mentioned that what other assets you have saved. So we call that bridge money. So what kind of bridge money do you have kind of saved to kind of bridge the gap until you're able to get to the age of Social Security where you can, claim Social Security there. So a lot of decisions. You're right, Graham. We help people that every day, especially on the federal side. We see a lot of federal employees come in the office.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say on this, I really wouldn't treat it as a decision again, like Social Security, how some people treat it, where they just think, I want to get the absolute maximum dollar amount out of it. Because if you do that, it probably does make sense to work longer, especially if you have a lot of years, and that boost of years of service will be a lot. But you are giving up, in a lot of cases, the FERS Social Security supplement. I think the bigger thing is, if you can afford to retire earlier and you want to, then you should know that that's at least an option for you. Because I think a lot of people just think that there's no way it's going to, but there's folks out there more than you would think that, got a couple $1 million TSPs sitting out there, or, old employer accounts and whatnot. And they, in their situation, it's not going to be quite as crucial. So again, I think it's just a good idea to know what your options are there, so that if you do get to the point where you feel like you might ready to be done, you don't feel stuck or feel uncertain about, whether you got to keep going or if you're good to go.
Very good. Okay, cool. So now, we've seen a lot happening with the markets past several weeks. Why don't you give us a market update, Cris?
Yeah, well, everybody's kind of aware the market's been kind of up and down and up and down. It's been kind of trending sideways, but just before we started recording the show, Iran said that they're interested in ending the war. And when that happened, the market shot up a tremendous amount. And today, the S&P is up like 2.5%. I'm just checking it online as I'm recording here. So there's optimism that the war may be ending, especially since, I guess, according to the headlines, because that's all this is a headline bump.
Yeah.
According to headlines, Iran wants to end the war. So investors are like, yes, okay. So market's up big time today. A couple of things we want to talk about off the highs. So at the S&P hit a high earlier in 2026, and when we talk about the highs, we're only down about around 7% off the highs. So we've had a lot of people come to us and ask us, well, what about Roth converting right now? And in my opinion, that's not a deep enough cut to put things on sale to do a Roth conversion today. Now, if we were 15 to 20% down, then that would be a different conversation, because at 7%, that's not, like I said, not a deep enough discount. And then what if something were to happen in Iran? We were to go in there with ground forces, and now all of a sudden that 7 drops to 15, and you really should have just kind of waited a little bit longer. So I'm not going to buy a sport coat if it's on sale 7%. If it's on sale for 20, I'm going to give it a lot more consideration at 20%. Yeah. So just a little bit about that as well. Year to date, the market is only down about 5%. So we're not, I had somebody come in the office yesterday that I met with late in the afternoon. And I, started my second meeting, and I said, hey, has anything changed since the last time I saw you? And they were like, yeah, well, the market. And I was like, oh, okay. And it dawned on me about 5 minutes into that meeting that it really, the market's not down that much. We're talking 5%. That's a little bit of a correction. And what they felt was the headlines of the war. and everything that's going on that they're reading in social media. And that coupled with just a negative market condition made it feel worse to them because their facial expressions were like, the market is down. And I'm like, I'm not minimizing people losing money. That's not at all what I'm saying, but it's 5%. It's really not that much in the grand scheme of things. And a 5% move within a given year is pretty normal. I mean, that happens a lot. So I think the heaviness of what's happening globally and the market being negative and those that are, Trump supporters or this administration supporters, they expect the market to be up at this point. And with it being negative coupled with a war, it kind of feels different. So that's kind of what's going on. Iran right now, at least for this minute of this day, has said, hey, we want to try to bring an end to this war. And it's made the markets kind of pop a little bit.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. It's interesting to get your perspective. The person that came in was very worried and you were able to calm them down and say, nope, it's just a little bit of a bump, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it is. It's a little speed bump.
It's a little speed bump. Yeah.
For now.
Right.
It can get worse.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And if it does, right. And if it does, there's things you can do to make it better. Like, for example, if the market dropped 20%, well, that kind of stinks. But if you're planning to do Roth conversions, that's kind of the best case scenario for you, is to catch a Roth conversion on a dip. It's hard to do, but that's the best case scenario. So there's always things you can do. And that's why I think working with, a financial planner, it really just kind of helps you make decisions instead of making emotional decisions.
Exactly. And that is why you and Graham do this show. You're listening to the Rite Retirement Show. So happy to have you along. We do want to make sure that when you are coming up on retirement, you are educated. You understand what are some things that you need to be doing. Just like what Graham was saying, a lot of people want to retire early. And Graham and Cris can guide you, on what you need to do. So happy to have you with us today. And again, if you have questions, you can connect with us anytime. You can call or text the word visit to 256-937-2010. All right. So guys, I'm anxious to get into our topic today. We want to talk about something that sounds really simple, but kind of isn't. And that's retiring with a pension. Now, the people I think who have one are super lucky. And a lot of people listening do have one. Okay. Or maybe they're close to earning one, right? I think there's a sense of security that comes with that. And of course, yeah, you should feel that way. But today we want to push a little bit more on that. So I want to start with the big one. Here's the question, Cris. I'll direct this to you first. I have a pension, so I'm good, right?
That was a quick question.
For the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So you have a pension, you're good, right? I mean, maybe. I do think this, and I'll kind of start the show by saying this. Those who, obviously, if you have a pension, I feel like you're a little bit more blessed in terms of you have the income. Most people out there today don't have a pension. So having some of that guaranteed income is great. But I will also say that having that pension increases taxation on Social Security. It increases, will likely increase your taxes overall. And I also believe that income covers up sin. So sometimes, I sit down with wealthy families and they make a lot of money and they're not quite as budget oriented as somebody who makes a lot less than them. So when you have a pension, sometimes it can create a sense of so much comfort that you often will become a little bit sloppy in your other areas of planning. And I know, Graham, we've seen that before where we'll sit down with a family, they have plenty of money, and they don't care about the other stuff because they have enough money to cover up the sin, if you will. So they're willing to pay a little bit more in taxes, or they don't want to make certain changes because it's a lot of effort and I don't care. I have enough money, that sort of thing. So, a pension is great. You have a good income floor. That's great. So I will say that having pensions, especially if you're a dual pension family, man, you've got a really strong foundation for your retirement plan. And oftentimes on the bright side, it can create a longer term horizon for your actual investments, meaning you could be a little bit more aggressive and you could kind of deploy some different strategies. So I love pensions. They just, they aren't around as much as they used to be.
Yeah. They're outside of, the federal employees out there, the state employees, there's very few of them. But I wanted to just piggyback off of one thing you said there that I think is a really interesting thing that I've noticed too, which that is maybe one of the only real downsides of a pension in my brain is that with some people, it definitely can cause just a level of maybe financial complacency a little bit, where similar to how if you think about, that if you make a lot of money, it doesn't always mean you have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing can be true for people with pensions, where they pretty much just think, hey, well, even if I make the stupidest financial decisions for the rest of my life, I know that I have X amount of dollars coming in every month. And that is a beautiful thing. A lot of people are probably sitting out there saying, hey, that doesn't sound so bad, actually. And in a sense, it's better than making a bunch of bad decisions and having nothing to fall back on, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it can lead to people not wanting to be as efficient, or maybe just not feeling as motivated to be efficient with their finances, and to just set their family up better, setting their spouse up better, setting their kids up better potentially in the future. So I do think it's one of those things where people will think of it as, oh, I got this pension. That's my plan. I don't really need to do anything else. Where if you do have a pension, that's awesome, but it's just one piece of the whole puzzle. I talked about a lot that as great as it is, it can also affect some other things that you need to be aware of, and it is affected by something. So there's a lot of nuance there, and we still just encourage people, hey, even if you got a strong guaranteed income base, awesome. That means you're going to have a great retirement. For most people, let's just see still how we can be efficient with that extra income.
So you guys, okay, Cris, I know I've told you this before, Graham. I think I've shared with you too, but my pension, I taught for 7 years. So I have a small pension. And I'm getting it right now. It's $411 a month.
Living large, Luann.
Man, you can buy a hamburger and a fry and maybe a large drink.
And then think about it, in 30 years from now, oh dear. And if I'm dead, Bobby gets half of that,
Yeah. Hey,
Ridiculous.
Luann, I just want to be clear here, like super clear.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of teaching on the air here for the last 10 years with radio with me. I ain't paying you a pension.
Oh, dang.
I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Why didn't I think of that? Oh, are you sure about that, Cris?
I can't. I don't have it in the budget.
Dang it.
We can match the teacher pension.
You can match it? Okay.
We could probably match the teacher.
Okay. I just had to tell you because it's just so silly and so little. But I couldn't last 3 more years, for it to get 10 years, and then I would have had.
You know what my mom used to tell me when I was younger? You get what you get and don't pitch your fit.
That's right.
Well, if it makes you feel better, Luann, that is not even close to the smallest pension I've ever seen. There
really?
are some folks out there that, worked for some random company. I remember one specifically, I think from like one of the phone manufacturers that went out of business in the flip phone era.
Yeah.
That had, or maybe it was the landline era. I don't really know. But they had a pension plan that, got frozen because the company went out of business. And I think it was paying out like $12 a month or something like that. So there are some that it is actually a cheeseburger. And
it
fries,
is a cheeseburger. Yeah. Oh,
Graham, you will never know what it feels like to be taking your kitchen phone across the floor and that curly Q cord knotting up on you. You'll never know what that felt like.
We had a corded phone
you did?
when I was a kid. Yeah.
Oh, you must have been little.
Did you use the phone, or did you just watch your mom and dad struggle with the knots in it?
Oh my gosh, I'm not that young. I did not have an iPhone for quite a long time.
Okay.
I miss landlines. Me and Emma have talked about when we have kids getting a landline, because I used to just, me and all my friends, we'd call each other from the landline phone, leave voicemails.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of pensions, how much pension are you getting, Graham?
I don't know. I think after the show, we had some time blocked off to talk about
I think so. Yeah.
Graham has the smallest pension. It's 0.
It's 0? Oh, dear. Hey, Graham, I think you better talk with Cris later.
Yeah, me and Luann are going to unionize.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Goodness.
Okay, well, let me get to this next question as we're talking about pensions, because knowing what you're going to get is kind of step one. Okay. Do people though know what that number is going into retirement? Like, I mean, obviously I'm not retired yet and I realized I could get my pension. So I thought I better do it. I better start getting that money. But anyway, so my question is, do most people actually know that number going into retirement?
If they're not receiving it, I would say they have a ballpark in their head. They might think, yeah, I got X amount of years of service and my salary is around this. Maybe it's like $2,000 a month, something like that. Does that sound right? But most of the time, they're usually a bit off. And there's a few reasons why you might be a bit off. For one thing, not everybody understands how their pension is actually calculated. So, for example, there have been plenty of, say, federal employees specifically that have come in, and there was one the other day who was saying, yeah, my pension will probably be around $2,500 a month. And I was doing just some very, very quick math, not an official estimate. And it's like, no, it should probably be 3,500 or so gross, 3,700. So I'm not saying it's going to be necessarily worse than you're thinking. It might be a little better than you're thinking, but that's just one part of it. It's not always the estimates that you get from whether you get them from your HR department or if you're getting them from OPM. They're not always 100% accurate, especially if there have been different breaks in your service and if there are some kind of oddball things going on there. But I think another reason why people don't always know the number is they just kind of know, if they do know it, they know the gross number. So they know the before tax, the before deductions, before anything number, which is not really what's going to be hitting your bank account. So if you're thinking about, this is my Social Security, my pension's this, that's my income. Not necessarily. There's going to be some deductions out of there. So I think it's really important to know. And very frequently when someone comes in and they don't know, that's a big homework item that we say, hey, before we get together again and before we actually start inputting all of this and looking at long-term planning, we need a more specific number because it might not seem like it, but for the vast majority of people out there, the difference, let's just say like $1,000 a month difference in a pension swing, that's a big difference for the average person. That's money that does or does not have to come out of a portfolio over a long term. Guaranteed income, maybe it's inflation adjusted income that may or may not be there. So those even little amounts can have big swings. So it is very important to know your numbers. One of the companies that we work with on the federal workshop side of things, that's one of their big things that they always say, know your numbers. And I think that is a super, super important thing, especially as you approach retirement.
Yeah. And just like you mentioned, looking at the gross number doesn't tell you. So like on the federal side, you're going to have FEHB in most cases that comes out of it. You're probably, if you're below age 65, you're also going to have some life insurance coming out of it if you just took the FEGLI basic. So I think, and then if you do the survivorship option, you've got either 0.5 or 0.1 coming off that as well. So it's important to kind of understand what is the net effect. And that doesn't even include the taxes. So you've got the health insurance, the life insurance, the survivor benefit plan, and then you got taxes on that. So that $3,000 pension can very quickly turn into a net of like $2,000 or $1,900. It drops down pretty significantly. So I'll add a little bit to this. I think everybody has an idea of what their pension is going to be. But often this is what I see, especially in the private sector, because with the federal government, I think it's kind of easy. What's your pension? Okay, it's $5,000. I'm going to do full survivorship, which by the way is only 50%, so it's not really full. I'll shut up on that because I could go on and on about that. But it costs you, 10%. It's 0.1. So if your pension's $5,000, we know exactly what the joint life is going to be because you take 0.1, and that's the net of that is your joint life pension. But if you come from like Boeing and you've been there forever, most of the time when I see people come in from Boeing, Lockheed Martin, those companies in the area, they bring in usually the single life option. And I'm sure that since we're talking about pension, we'll get into survivorship and all that here shortly. But most of the time people bring in the single survivor option, which usually in most cases is not the way that we would prefer you go when it comes to selecting your pension options.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a little bit harder to get info on the private sector. And also a lot of times if you're talking about a private sector pension, they're going to give you an option of a lump sum versus a payout. And that's not something in federal and state governments that you usually get the option for. But the private sector, you do get that option, which can throw a whole kind of other monkey wrench in the decision of, that makes everything different. Because if you just say, hey, you're getting X amount a month and that's your only choice, just would you like a 25 or 50% survivor benefit? It's not an easy decision to make, but you don't have to choose anything really except the survivor benefit. Where if they're saying, hey, do you want $2,000, $3,000 a month, or do you want X number of $100,000 just in a lump sum when you retire, go into an IRA? So it is definitely a tough decision. But just to give people like a very rough idea of what we're talking about with the deductions, let's just say that you were, and I'm just going to use, these are all ballpark numbers, but let's say you getting a $3,000 pension from the federal government, and you take full survivor benefit, which again, like Cris noted, is only 50%. That would take $300 off the top. If you were taking 10% federal taxes off, that's also another $300. If you're below 65, using full FEHB, that's probably another $400 to $500 a month. You might be paying $50 a month for your federal life insurance. I'm trying to think if there's any deductions I'm missing. Those are the big ones, but that brings you down to $1,900 net right off the top. So you're planning on $3,000, you're getting $1,900. So it is a big difference, and you should really be working off of those net amounts when you can, rather than just the large gross number you see on the screen.
So you just came up with the same swag number that I came up with. Wasn't that pretty cool?
Oh, really? Exactly.
I said 1900 probably.
Yeah, you did.
That's good. Yeah, we're on the same page. The other thing too you mentioned, I want to talk about that for a quick second as we get near the end of the first half of the show. That is, you said the private sector, that sometimes they give you the option of the lump sum. And for me personally, that creates a little bit of almost confusion with the individual trying to decide, should I take the lump sum or should I take the payout? And I think right off the bat, the very first thing that I always do is I just run the cash flow out of the lump sum, or out of the annuity or the pension that they're going to have. So let's say, for an example, they're going to get $20,000 a year, and they've been offered the lump sum is $300,000. So if they take the lump sum, so if I take the lump sum and I divide the annual amount, the $20,000 a year, and I divide it by the lump sum of $300,000, that gives me a cash flow rate of 6.6%. Now, what I hear people say is, well, I can just go make that in retirement. And you may average that in retirement, but with all the dips and drops in the market, with you steady having to pull out of that, you're going to introduce sequence of return. And theoretically, you could drop, you could run that count to zero. So typically when I see a pretty high cash flow rate, especially at a young age, so if you were like age 60 and your cash flow out of the pension was like 6.6%, that's a pretty high cash flow rate. And I'm all about taking the guarantees in retirement. So if you're going to be pulling heavy on a portfolio, sometimes it's better just to have that guaranteed income coming into the bank account every month, so that you're not having to worry about pulls from the portfolio. Pensions are nice, and I think just electing to take that lump sum decision, it takes more thought than, hey, I just want the cash in hand.
Okay.
Because why it creates a different, or a battle in some people, an emotional battle, is you want to just get that $300,000 and put it in your bank account. So anyway, I'm running a little bit long here, so we've got to jump off to the second half of the show. So if you're catching the show on the way to church on Sunday morning, you can give us a call, 256-937-2010, to set up your discovery session. Again, the number is 256-937-2010. And if you're just catching the first half, again, you can hop out to Apple Podcast or Spotify and catch the whole episode whenever you have time.
Would you rather pay more or less in taxes? If you want to pay more, don't do anything. If you want to pay less, talk to Cris Wallace to see what's possible for you. Just text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Again, text VISIT to 256-937-2010.
Are you a federal employee feeling pressure from the early retirement offers like VERA, VSIP, or the Deferred Resignation Program? Recent government initiatives have introduced significant changes to federal retirement programs, making employees feel pressured to consider early retirement or face potential layoffs. At WG Financial Group, we help guide federal employees through these uncertain times. Our team understands the complex federal retirement systems and can help you make informed decisions. Call 256-937-2010 to schedule your complimentary discovery session with us today. We'll help you assess your options and create a personalized retirement plan to help you feel more confident. Visit WGFinancialGroup.com or call 256-937-2010 to book your session. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
Dreaming up your ideal retirement? It starts with a solid plan tailored to your unique goals. Set aside uncertainty by arranging a friendly, informative session with Cris Wallace. Just text VISIT to 256-937-2010. That's text VISIT to 256-937-2010. Begin charting your course with confidence.
Yeah. Okay. We thank you so much for spending part of your day with us today. I'm Luann Fulmer here with Cris Wallace, president of WG Financial Group, also certified financial planner, financial advisor. And of course, also with us today, Graham Bauer of the firm, certified financial planner, financial advisor, and enrolled agent. Now, Cris and Graham, when you meet with them, okay, and if you become a client, they will take you through their Rite retirement process. And of course, Rite is spelled R-I-T-E, thus, the name of our show, the Rite Retirement Show, Rite. It's an acronym. R stands for retirement income, and then investing, tax strategies, and estate planning. That is a complete plan for your retirement, and that is what they want for you and what they can help you with, because they want you to plan and then retire and play in retirement. That's the whole goal. So we're so happy to have you with us. You can find us online at wgfinancialgroup.com. Okay. We're talking today about retiring with a pension. And oh my gosh, if you are one of the lucky ones, it makes me think of a song. That was a song by, you guys wouldn't know this, but Faith Hill. You're the lucky one.
Wait a minute. I'm in my early 50s. I'm good. Graham probably knows that song.
It was a Faith Hill country song. Yeah.
I think I would recognize it if I heard it.
Yeah.
You want to sing it for me?
No, we will not go there.
I can't believe
yeah, this song came out in 2006.
There's a line in that song.
Yeah.
The lucky one. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Graham
Anyway.
he was running around in his underoos.
Underoos. I love
Batman
it.
underoos.
Oh, that's too funny. It's Batman. Well, okay. So anyway, I don't know why I said that, but you are lucky if you have a pension. Okay. So what we had been talking about, and I want to get into this a little bit, dive in a little bit deeper, the survivor benefits. Okay. So Cris, why don't you explain how they work and why they matter so much if you're a couple?
Well, first of all, I think these decisions are meant to be made with a financial planner. I'll say that because sometimes we can make these emotional decisions or what we think is the right decision and then end up being the wrong decision. So I want to go back and touch on something we just talked about the lump sum, and then I'll roll back into these survivor benefit options because it'll all tie together. So let's take, for an example, we were talking about the lump sum earlier versus the pension and the cash flow rate and all of that. So here in the state of Alabama, if you have a pension coming from a defined benefit plan, which is like your military pension, your FERS annuity, your pension from one of the defense contractors, none of those payments are state taxed. Well, that's kind of a big deal, actually. But if you take that lump sum and you drop it into an IRA, and then you make your distributions out of your IRA, those distributions are subject to state tax. So it's kind of a big deal. The other thing, too, when you start looking at survivor benefit, is I think a lot of people tend to forget this, especially if you're the higher income earner, because I hear this a lot. Oh, well, he or she will get my Social Security. Well, that's true. The higher Social Security is the one that's kept by the surviving spouse, but that surviving spouse also loses theirs. So that's an income loss. So even if the Social Security in this case was $1,200, that's $1,200 less that person has coming into the household, even though they kept the higher of the socials. Now, let's take that to the pension decision. If you make the single life decision on your pension, and you pass away, then there's nothing going to the spouse, and they lost Social Security. So it is a really bad situation. So a lot of people, like with the federal government, will take the full survivorship option, which is, again, and I repeat, only 50% passes on. Usually with military pensions, it's 55%. So if you've got a household that has Social Security payments and pension payments, you already know that one Social Security goes away at passing, and you know that half of each one of those pensions goes away. That's a pretty severe income drop for that surviving spouse. So these survivor benefits are really, they're really important. I have seen in some cases, and I'm kind of on board with this option, and we've talked to a few people about it as well. And this is something, if you're going to consider this, I would think about this earlier than later. So as I go into this is a decision you would want to start thinking about and maybe even put in place prior to retirement. So as I mentioned, the federal government pension is the best that you can do as a 50% survivor. And the cost is 10%. So on a $5,000 a month pension, it's $500 a month. That is what the cost is. And every year that you receive a COLA, your pension goes up by, say, 2.5%. Well, so does the cost of that survivor benefit. So eventually, by the time you reach, I don't know, age 80, your pension might be $6,500, but your survivor benefit payment now is also $650, because it's always going to be 10% of whatever your pension payment is. So what we've talked to a few families about is, is it better to take that, say, $500 of what the survivor benefit option is going to cost and just buy a permanent life insurance policy? When I say permanent, I'm not talking about whole life. There's different products that you can use out there. And that way, when you pass away, instead of getting only 50% of the pension payment, they get the entire life insurance policy tax-free. Now, that works in some cases, doesn't work in every case. Some people like it, some people don't. But that's a way to guarantee a tax-free stream of income, because the federal pension, in this case, that you would pass on, it's not state taxed, as we talked about, but there's still the federal tax obligation. And now that surviving widow or widower is now in the single filer bracket, and maybe they have a big Social Security and a 50% of a decent sized pension, now all of a sudden they're, in a higher tax bracket than they would have been in having the joint life while they were married, filing jointly. So looking at that as an option for some families makes sense. Again, in my opinion, you want to start that conversation when you're younger. And if you're a federal employee and you plan on retiring around age 60 or 62, then that's something you may want to think about in your early 50s. And the reason for that is life insurance is cheaper. And you probably still have some debt that you may want to cover for the time being. So you could kind of go ahead and start putting that in play. Maybe you're carrying life insurance at the federal government and it's really started to increase. So maybe replacing some of that company life insurance with some permanent life insurance with the intention of making that part of the survivor option, to me, makes sense for the right person. Again, this is not for everybody, and we don't do this for everybody. But I think it's worth having the conversation with some people as opposed to just taking 50% of the survivor option. And like I mentioned, the SBP cost for the federal government goes up every time you get a COLA, it goes up. So now if you take the life insurance option, all of the COLAs on your pension, you're now realizing all of that COLA, and none of it's really the difference between $650 a month and $500 is actually going in your pocket, because you've kind of frozen the life insurance payment because it doesn't increase. It's fixed forever. So anyway, there's just some thoughts on survivor benefit options there.
Yeah, and I would say most people are going to need to do one or the other. Not everybody.
Correct.
But most people. I saw probably somewhere between 3 and 5 different scenarios within the last 6 months where the spouse, and in this case, it was the husband in all cases. Sorry, men. I think this might be a uniquely man thing a little bit. where they were retired military, so military pension, or maybe they weren't retired military, but they served, and they were getting VA disability, getting a FERS pension, and they'd be getting Social Security. And they were not sure that they wanted to take a survivor benefit on their pension, or were just going to take the absolute minimum. And in that case, I mean, if you're out there, and a lot of people in the areas that we serve in the Huntsville area are retired military, there's just a ton of folks out there. So a lot of you probably listening are getting some form of VA disability. That's a great income source to have in retirement because it's tax-free, especially if you're getting up to 100%. It's over like $4,000 a month now, totally tax-free. That income source after you die is not going to continue in full to your spouse. Mm-hmm. There's a few stipulations where they could get a portion of it, but they're not going to get all of it when you pass away. So there's going to be a loss of minimum like 50, 60% there, probably more, if not all. And then you look at the Social Security side, like Cris mentioned, even if your spouse didn't work at all and they just collect half of your amount, that's still about 30%-ish of the Social Security benefits that's coming in, half of yours. They're getting $1,500, you're getting $3,000. And then now you're looking at the federal pension, and at most they can continue 50% of that, and at least zero. So I do think that if you're out there and you're in a situation like that, which a lot of people are, even if you don't have the VA, but you're just looking at Social Security and pensions, you're going to need to do one or the other, because what you really don't want to happen is retire and be pulling in $12,000 a month in pensions, disability, and Social Security, and then kick the bucket and leave your wife with $4,000 or leave your husband with $4,000 a month. Mm-hmm. It's going to be understood that there's going to probably be some kind of income loss whenever a spouse passes away. That you're most likely not going to be able to undo all of that. But you don't want that to be 75% or 80%, because that's just emotionally going to be very hard and financially going to be very hard. So I do think that, yeah, Cris, you're totally right. As you approach retirement, it's a really good time to start thinking about that. I don't think that a survivorship decision is a decision where you put in your 2 weeks notice and you think about it for the first time on your last day and you check a box.
100%.
Like you should have been thinking about that 5 years ago.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
If not 10 years ago.
Right. And I'm sure people have said this to you as well. Man, I wish I would have met you 10 years ago. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. And it just goes to, just the thought of financial planning. That's why people find it valuable. And we've had people come in and talk about this option with us. And that's how they become a client of ours to begin with, because they're still working. They still have all their money at age 50, 51 in a TSP, but they want to put something in place longer. And so that, they basically become part of our client family just via that avenue for the time being. So yeah, making that decision, or at least having that conversation early on, it's all about knowing your options at the end of the day. It's, I didn't think about that. Well, this is the industry that we're in and we do this. I told somebody the other day, this is your first retirement. It's not mine.
That's right.
I've seen hundreds of families at this point retire, and we've been able to walk that journey with them. So, and we don't say that arrogantly. We take that very seriously, but it isn't our first retirement. And we have a lot of experience with the federal government employees in the area, a lot of the engineers, defense contractors. I find it quite humorous that I used to be an engineer myself, and I left the automotive industry and thought I would never work with engineers again. And now that's all I work with for the most part. And then my friends in the financial industry are like, I can't stand working with engineers. They're very detailed and they want to talk about numbers. And I'm like, aren't you a financial planner? That's what we do, right?
Exactly.
What do you do in your financial planning firm? So
super funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So survivor benefits, to kind of wrap this question up. Big deal. Should be taken very, very seriously. Know your options. And make sure that spouse that you stood with at the altar.
Yeah,
you're not writing books. Well, maybe you are about marriage. I don't know. Make sure that the person you stood there at the altar with, make sure you take good care of them.
Right, and the decision about a pension is not irrevocable, right? What other retirement decisions are locked in place once the paperwork is signed?
Well, the decision on pensions, as far as survivor benefits goes, is irrevocable. I mean, once you make that decision, you're not going to be able to I'm talking about federally here in most state agencies. Maybe there are a few that aren't. I'm not aware of any that aren't. Pretty much everyone I've ever seen has been, you make that election and that's the election that you're going with for the rest of your life. So if, you got in an argument with your spouse that day and we're like, oh, well, you know what? You're not getting half the pension. You're not going to be able to go back and change
Cut you out of the wheel.
Yeah, I'm cutting you out of the pension. You're not going to be able to go change that back next week and say, oh, no, I changed my mind. So it is very, very important that you make a good decision on that when you're going out, because also, I'll throw this out for federal employees, your spouse's ability to continue on your health insurance is tied to a pension decision. So if you decide, hey, we're just not going to, we saved well, she's fine, she can sell the house. That's what some guys say. We don't like that at all.
Yes.
Some guys say that she can sell the house. Anyways, I'm not going to take a survivor benefit. And then you die. Not only does she lose the pension, but she's also losing access to federal health benefits permanently. No FEHB continuation at that point, which, especially if you're under 65, that could be a huge loss, because now you got to go exchange, private insurance, whatnot. So that decision is super important. Another, I would semi-irrevocable, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but when it pertains to income, is Social Security. Now, you can technically revoke this within the first 12 months. Most people don't, but they do give you a little period of time to be irrevocable. But then after that 12 months passes, you're not going to be able to revoke that anymore. And that's just the benefit that you're getting. And lastly, when you get to age 65, you're also going to have a decision to make on, what you do as far as Medicare, as far as signing up, which most people are going to have to sign up if they're retired to avoid penalty. And then also what plan you take. So again, this is one of those things that's not an irrevocable decision, but you do have a unique opportunity within the first, the initial enrollment period that opens up, where you can get in without having to go through any Medicare or medical underwriting. So if you're someone with some pre-existing conditions, you're probably going to get better rates, get approved for better plans, doing that early on. So again, not necessarily an irrevocable decision, but definitely one of those decisions that, if you mess it up on the front end, or maybe mess it up is the wrong word. If you make a bad choice on the front end, it can affect you a lot more on the back end, because you're not going to have the same window of opportunity that you have when you make that election. So in retirement, I could go on, there's plenty more of those types of decisions, but I think those are some of the big ones that come to mind to me that, again, like we've been talking about, it's really helpful to have somebody by your side, a professional that does this all the time, that can help guide you to know that you're making the right decisions for yourself and for your family.
Yeah. And I think the other part to that is, people go to social media and we have this strong bias, and the confirmation bias is kind of a real thing. And so you watch something on social media and you go, oh, man, that sounds great. Man, it sounds perfect. That's me. And without doing any research on your situation, have somebody evaluate really the financial health of your overall retirement. And you go and make this decision because you saw some random Joe on social media that says something that sounded really good. Remember, people are really good on camera. We've got, me and Graham have a face for radio, as we like to say. So we just hide behind the mic. But anyway, so I guess just being thorough about that and going and seeking advice. Here's kind of the thing I'll say this. I think we talked about it last week. There are people out there that don't want to work with an advisor because they quote unquote don't want to pay. All right. They want to do everything themselves. They don't want to pay. It's not worth it. Okay, that's fine. Do whatever you want. But the execution of things is where we, often will see things that didn't happen. So there have been people that come in my office, and there's been people that are clients of mine, and we told them during the onboarding process, here are the things that we need to attack and fix and make more efficient. And these are the things we're going to do. These are the things you have to do. Come in for the review. It's like, oh, still haven't done those. So there are many people that come to the office to say, we're going to just do this on our own. We're not going to work with you guys. And then I can't guarantee it, but I can tell you there's a large percentage of people that I could call today and say, hey, did you do those things that we laid out for you? And the answer will probably be no, because as humans, we just have this element of procrastination. our intentions are really, really good, but our execution is really, really poor. And so I think there is value in building that relationship with someone and understanding that it's not just about the fee that you're paying for the investments. It's about the fee that you're paying for the investments and the other value add that a financial planning firm with certified financial planners on staff can actually bring to your family.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so true. That is a perfect way of explaining it, Cris. So, okay, beyond the pension, then, what should someone be doing to make sure that they are actually financially secure in retirement?
Well, I think there's, first of all, I think just establishing a plan. That is one of the things that when someone comes to the office that will ask is, do you currently have a financial plan in place? And I think a lot of times what people have is, and I think the best way to describe it is, and I don't mean this offensively when I say it, but it's kind of a junk drawer of stuff. They've got this product, or maybe they have that product, or they have, 2 or 3 old 401ks or 2 or 3 IRAs, and they've got no organization with it. And they've done a good job at saving wherever they were at, whatever job they were at, but there's no organization to the junk drawer. And by the way, full disclosure, I have a junk drawer at the house. And it has
Junk in it?
Well, sometimes it's some meat thermometers for my smoker.
Yeah.
It has those little bitty tiny screwdrivers for like my glasses that I only keep there.
Keychains in there.
Do I have some keychains? I don't.
Maybe
Maybe
rubber bands and
rubber bands are in there, paper clips, binder clips, because I use binder clips as chip clips. I don't know if you do that at your house.
Oh,
Yeah, I
that's
think
a
they
good
would make
idea.
excellent chip clips. But anyway, I have a junk drawer. I'd like to think that my financial situation is not a junk drawer.
Yeah.
It's fairly organized.
Yeah.
But I think that's the first thing that we can do, kind of beyond the pension is really start to build out and construct that plan. And I just found out yesterday that Dave Ramsey actually said this, or at least this is what the gentleman told me. He said something about the dream team, and I just kind of paused. I stopped writing my notes and I looked at him and I said, "The dream team?" And he said, "Yeah, Dave Ramsey said that before." And I said, "Well, I said that."
No,
2 or 3 years ago. And I'm not saying Dave's copying me, so don't say that. But I guess we thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And remember the dream team. It's your attorney, right? Your estate planning attorney, your CPA, and your financial planner. That's your dream team. And their job is to protect you and your family and really do all of the heavy lifting, or most of the heavy lifting, throughout your retirement so that you can go out and play, as we like to say, and really make memories with your loved ones. So I think all of that to say it starts with planning, making sure you have a plan in place, making sure that you're saving in tax advantaged accounts. So whether that's your pre-taxed or, IRA or your non-qualified accounts, your joint accounts, making sure that you're, contributing to those, making sure that you're at least at the bare minimum taking advantage of any company match, but also pushing yourself a little bit. And I think that is one thing that when families have come in the office before, we've been able to just kind of talk to them and coach them into putting in a little bit more, because sometimes, in my opinion, it doesn't make sense if you've got 6 figures in a savings account to continue to pad that in a savings account. Sometimes it's better to redirect some of that money into one of your retirement plans so that it gets out of your hands and it gets placed into an opportunity to where has the potential to make a little bit more money. So those are the type of things, beyond the pension that you got to think about and start coming up with the pension plan we talked about earlier. Start thinking about your Medicare decisions, your Social Security decisions, because your Social Security decisions could impact when you retire, and it also can impact what other accounts you're going to pull from while you wait on Social Security. And then thinking about your charitable giving. There's a lot of people that we work with, a lot of our families that we work with are charitable. So there's efficient ways to do that. So having those conversations and building a plan for that.
This is just making me think of this. Didn't we talk about a 401k is not a retirement plan? TSP is not. I think we talked about that.
I think you said TSP is not. TSP is a great holding company. They're not a great retirement planning company.
Yes, yeah.
And you're right.
And that goes for pretty much all 401k plans. So, and then this week we're talking about, kind of in a sense, a pension's not a retirement plan. So I think, not that the listeners can't surmise this from listening to it, but I think the message really should be that all of these are tools in your retirement toolbox, and they are all part of a good retirement plan. if you don't have any savings, that might not be a good retirement plan. If you don't have any guaranteed income, that's probably not a great retirement plan. So all of these kind of go hand in hand in getting you to the place that you want to be. Because again, just like you don't just want to sit on a pension and say, oh, well, that's great, I'll be fine forever. You don't just want to sit on a 401k or a TSP and say, okay, well, the fees are pretty low, I'll just leave it there forever. Because, you think about a time like what's going on right now in the world. Like we talked about earlier, the market's not down that much from the high, but people are still getting antsy with that. Mm-hmm. And if you call your random 401k custodian or your TSP and you say, hey, I'm getting a little worried about this. How should I adjust my allocation at all? Should I switch my target date fund? You're getting hung up on. Nobody's, well, what they're going to tell you is we can't give you financial advice on that. Consult, a financial professional. And I think in retirement, it becomes such an emotional time for you that it really is not wise to go about it and just, okay, well, I have these couple sources of income or assets that I'm going to get and I'm fine. I'll just pull out money when I need it and everything will go swimmingly and I'll never get panicked and make a bad decision. And I'll always take action on the things I need to take action on, because that's a lot to keep up with. And it's a lot emotionally to handle with your own money. Even Cris, and I know you've talked about this on the show a lot, that, you don't manage your own money, and probably eventually I won't either, because there is, moments like even these last couple of weeks where I don't enjoy being the one to be like, yeah, you can get antsy when it's your own money. It's very easy for me to tell people, hey, let's look at the data. You're good.
Yeah.
We had a long time horizon, but then I log into my own Fidelity account and I don't do it, but my brain is like, sell the cash.
Yeah.
Put everything under the mattress.
Right.
Never go outside again.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Graham. Even as advisors, we're still wired the same way as all humans from an emotional perspective. And I, can get emotional just like everybody else. So sometimes it's just better to have the biggest part of my money professionally managed. And then I have a little bit that I use for charitable giving kind of under my management, doing a little bit of tax loss harvesting as well. Just did that actually with the drop. So there was a chance to do that in some of my funds. So this has been a good show, just about planning in general. I will say this. I think there's a lot of people that listen to the show and they listen to the show and they go, oh, I'm doing everything right. And I've had people say to me, well, you just started talking about this on the air. So did you just find out about it? The answer is no. The answer is you can't cover an entire financial plan in one episode. And then also there's just things that, we can't talk about on air because it's just very specific. And there's things that we'll ask you in a meeting. But I guess the point is, listening to the radio show doesn't make you, it should not give you the confidence level that everything is okay, because I have had radio listeners that have come in and they have listened for 8 years and longer in some cases, because now we've been on the air 10 years at this point, and they still aren't doing everything correctly. And that's usually because the intention is good, but the execution is poor. So if you'd like to set up a discovery session, come in and meet with us, 256-937-2010. Again, our number is 256-937-2010. Give us a call to set up your discovery session. I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. Happy Easter. He is risen. What an awesome thing that is. And I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the week. And remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Please remember, converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. An increase in taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Graham Bauer holds the enrolled agent designation, but is not currently offering tax preparation services. Neither the firm nor its agents may give tax advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any purchasing decisions.
Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management LLC, AEWM, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisory requirements. AEWM and WG Financial Group are not affiliated companies. companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. WG Financial is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial. This radio show is a paid placement.